Hello everyone! こんにちは。僕の名前はゼクキョ。君たちの Virtual Sensei。どうぞよろしくお願いします。Good afternoon everyone. My name is Zeku Kyo and I'm your virtual lecturer. Nice to meet all of you. Welcome to TNE10005 Network Administration Lecture 2. Today we're going to talk about network topology, basic IP addressing, some IP subnetting, and also PMBOK, or something like that, something similar. Project management body of knowledge. Alright, so let's start the lecture. Before we going further into lecture 2, I would like to show you all the summary of previous lecture, such as the OSI encapsulation summary. Alright, as you can see over here, we have our physical layer, which is your wires, and then your switch at data link layer, which communicate data between local area network. In network layer is where your router is at to communicate between your network to different network. Transport layer is where you choose to use either UDP or TCP, basically to segment your data and so on to make sure the data is transferred correctly. In session layer is establishes, manages, and terminates session between end hosts. Presentation layer translate the data format such as JPEG, SCS data, MP4 data, MP3 data, and so on. And application layer is where network services to users. What are network topology? Network topology is the strategy that you use to connect your devices together, something like a map of your devices. Alright, for example, we have a bus topology over here. It's a classic CSMA CD topology, which all of the devices connected to a single backbone or a single wire kind of thing. Those are the called bus topology. Next, we have something called star topology. All devices are connected to a central concentrator. Wi-Fi network, especially at your housing area, uses this topology. As you can see over here, your router or your switch can be connected in the middle with your devices connected to it. Alright, like this as well, wireless connection. Similarly to star topology, this is a ring topology. All devices are connected to a single MAU or other devices to form a ring. Okay, as you can see, in a ring topology, it communicates this way. Alright, let me draw something for you, okay? So, some of you may ask, why are we learning about topology? Basically, for now, this ring topology is used in undersea cables. Alright, so why is it used in undersea cables? For an example, this is Sarawak, right? Okay, bad drawing, but it's alright. This is Peninsula Malaysia. Okay, for example, you have a router over here from your ISP connected to router here, and then router over here connected to Singapore routers, connected to Sabah routers, okay? And then other than just this single connection, you need to make sure that there's more connection. Alright, so what if this connection suddenly got bitten by a shark? If it's bitten by a shark, then your router can communicate using the other route. Okay, that is why we use different type of topology for different type of situation. For example, in this topology just now, alright, we have two route over here, one over here. If you want to communicate, if this device want to communicate with this device, it can either use this route Or if this one is broken, then it can use the other route. Okay? This is what they call a fully meshed topology, which is the safest and greatest redundancy. It is very difficult to administer and is also difficult to, expensive to maintain, because all these wires that you need to buy, that you need to check, you need to make sure that everything is okay, and the network connection also need to be maintained. There is something called addressing. So how do devices know if the data is for them? How do switches know which port to send the data out? And how do routers choose the path pass? That's what we use addressing for. Okay? So imagine for a moment that you are the computer in a network, alright? From physical layer, you will need to process all of this in split second. Look at that numbers. So this is what your physical layer data look like. After the physical layer, which is your layer 1, we have the layer 2 called the data link layer. Data link layer breaks all those numbers just now into a byte. Or a byte is equal to 8 bits. Alright? This 1, 0 is 2 bits, 3 bits, 4 bit, 5 bit, 6 bit, 8 bit. 8 bit is a byte. The second thing that the data link layer does to the 1 and 0s just now is to apply a frame to the 1 and 0s. A frame assigns meaning to the 1 and 0s depending on where they appear in the sequences of 1 and 0s. Like just now, you see the numbers with colors. This is what it is. The black part are called preamble. The green part is called is for the destination address. The red part is where the data come from. The blue part over here is to determine the type and length of the frame. Okay, so you can see that this blue part will tell like how long is this thing come together. And orange and purple is what we call payload, which is the data that is passed to the upper layer. We assign no meaning to these bytes at this layer. And the dark gray is your frame check. All of the previous data is used to generate a check number. The receiving devices use the same algorithm to generate a check number. If any data was corrupted or not received, then the check number will not match and the receiving device will drop this frame and wait for the next frame that may fix this frame. Okay? Layer 2 addressing that your switch operates in is called physical address. Physical address operates in this layer. Okay? This thing is burned into the device when manufactured. Where does it burn in? It's burned in inside your NIC, which is your network card thing. Yeah, your Wi-Fi card, your Ethernet cable thing card. Yeah, the one that have port on your computer. MAC addresses cannot be divided into subnetwork. Okay, so physical address is equal to your MAC address. This is a MAC address. You can use IP config /all in your command prompt, your CMD, to check for MAC addresses. Some of you that already be doing your lab or trying to do your lab, you may already see something called the IP addresses in your IP config. IP addresses are called the logical address. It operates in layer 3. IP addresses usually configured by either the DHCP or the network administrator. It is used to group devices into subnetworks. To link the layer 3 and layer 2 addresses, we have the address resolution protocol, which enables the two layers to resolve each other. Okay, you can use ARP.A to check this table over here. When using IP to communicate with another device on your LAN, Layer 2 uses the ARP table to see which MAC address to send it to. If the address of the destination device does not have its MAC address in the table, the computer uses ARP to send a broadcast to every device. No data here, they send broadcast, alright? Broadcast. For example, this is your computer. Try to send to this computer over here. Okay, there's a lot of other computer. If inside the connection there's no inside the MAC address of this, it's not included inside the ARP address, this computer will send to broadcast to everyone. So this is IP addresses. In IPv4, we have a 32-bit addresses. Why is it 32? You can count over here. 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, and so on until you have 32. This will give us around 4 billion for something, right? Different addresses. For ease of and eyes and brain, we break it into 4 different octets. Okay, this is 1 octet, this is another octet. All right, this is 4 octet. Octet, why is it octet? It is 8-bit for each octet. Octet, you can remember it as like octopus have 8 legs. So we generally represent each octet as a decimal number. This gives us the range of addresses from 0.0.0.0 to 255.255.255.255. IP addresses are hierarchical. What does that mean? Right? For example, this is a phone number. The +6 is international code for Malaysia, 082 for Kuching, and so on. Alright? This is a format for phone number in Kuching, for example, okay? So, if you change the number, the location thing, alright, it will not call my number. But don't worry, if you call the previous number, it will also not call my number because for security reason, I'm not posting my phone number online. Actually, I don't have phone number anymore, especially in my home. So yeah, it is what it is. Let's move on, okay? So that applies similarly to IP addresses. As you can see, if you have 136.186.143.15 is equal to that website, if you change the number like this, it will not go to that website. I mean, that Swinburne website just now, okay? In networking, we have this one technique called IP addresses subnetting. Subnetting enables the hierarchy. Administrator use subnet mask to configure devices to a place in the hierarchy. Why are you using subnetting? Okay, for an example, we have 192.168.1.0. This is usually what they use in your house, which is your home network IP address. Okay, this is your subnet over here. We have IP addresses, subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. For an example that you are given this network, okay, and then you need to divide the network between you and your brother device or something like that. So you need to use subnetting to get this big pie and divide it in half. One for your brother and one for you. That is what people use subnetting for, to separate networks. For a subnet mask, is all ones on the left and zeros on the right. As you can see over here, ones on the left and zeros on the right. This is the decimal for the above binary over here. This is what the 255.255.255.0 is what I mentioned just now look like in binary. In CIDR, we call it /24. Alright, CIDR is the format of what we call something like to represent subnet mask in the IP address format thing. Okay, Let me show you, for example, just now 192.168.1.0. Okay, so instead of writing subnet mask 255.255.255.0, we just say your IP address is 192.168.1.0/24. Alright, that is the CIDR notation thing. Subnet mask is used to determine the network, subnetwork, and host portion of a IP address. ANDing is what we call a technique to use an operator to find the network address of a IP address. Okay, let me tell you why do we need to find network address for IP addresses. Example, you have your computer over here connected maybe using a switch. You have 192.168.1.11, while this one is 192.168.2.22. Both of it is a /24 IP addresses. So you are trying to connect them together using your switch just now in a LAN, and then you wonder why does this thing does not work. Okay, so as you can see over here, these are your IP addresses. IP addresses are not equal to your network address or your subnet address, or what else do they call it? Let me see. Subnet ID. IP address, you need to remember, not equal to this. Okay, so basically you need to remember something. When you want to communicate two devices together in a local area network by only using switch, you need the two devices to be in the same network. How to find network, the IP address, this one and this one in the same network or not? How do you find it? We use the ANDing method, which is like something like this. Okay, so as you can see over here, we have IP address on top, 172.16.240.1. okay, 172.172.240.1. we change these addresses in binary. That's the first step. The second step is to change the network mask in binary. Here you go, in binary. And then you do the ANDing method. Okay, ANDing method is where 0 0 equal to 0, 0 1 equal to 0, 1 0 equal to 0, 1 1 equal to 1. As you can see over here, 1 1 1, 0 1 0, and so on. My best tip for you all would be to see this type of mask over here, okay, and this part of the network mask. Because this network mask is 255.255, right? All of the previous thing going to be 1, as you can see here. And since this one is 0, all of it gonna be 0, okay? So technically, if you do compare this and this, you're going to get the same number. You compare this and this, you're going to get the same number. And then you compare this and this, you're gonna get 0 and 0. Alright? If you see the network subnet mask have .0.0 in the end, and you are given IP address such as this, easily calculated, it's going to be .0.0 in the end because of the subnet mask over here. If you do the ANDing method, it's going to end up the same. Okay, although you need to be careful if you see something like this. If you see network mask over here, it's not .0 but .16 or .32 and so on. And then you need to calculate using the ANDing method. This is what we call the network portion of the address, and this is what we call the host portion of the address. You can see it by looking at the ones over here and zeros over here. Okay, the host portion of the address, mask in binary should be zeros, zeros. There are a bunch of exercise over here. I'm gonna explain to you this one first. Okay, we have 172.16.126.1. Okay, you can do the ending method by changing the address to binary, the mask and array, and do the ending method. But I will teach you this simple technique. Okay, it says 255 and 255. So the result going to be 172 and 16, 1, 2, 6, 0, 1 and 0. The result going to be 0, 0. Okay, simple as that. So the network address, the subnet ID or the subnet address of this IP address is equal to 172.16.0.0. I'm gonna skip some of the exercise over here. You can try it later on by yourself and try to ask your friend and all that. Do it together if you want to try it, okay? Make sure you know how to do this before next week. It's what I mentioned just now. You use the subnetting thing to divide your network. For example, this subnet mask determines the level of your network. For example, you have your big network, your Swinburne network, 255.255.0.0, and then in different campus, you use it 255.255 instead of the .0 over here. So we can use this part of the network to separate the network. And in the smaller area, you can use different number over here to separate the devices in the network, okay? As you can see over here, the source device over here, okay, need to send data to an IP address. It asks itself if the IP address is inside their own subnet. It determines this by using its locally configured subnet mask. Okay. If the IP address of the destination device is its own subnet, it sends the data directly to the MAC address of the destination device using ARP to locate the MAC address. If it's not in the same subnet, this source will send the MAC address of the destination to a default gateway, which is your router over here. This is your router default gateway for this network. Okay, so the router will find that MAC address and IP address to match it inside their table thing. Okay, and it will arrive to the user over here. So you need to remember the logical address rule, the basic rule. Okay, if you want to communicate in a local area network, the addresses must be in the same subnet that can be connected by using bus, hub, or switch. While to communicate with other subnet, you must use a router or gateway, the default gateway thing. Basically, default gateway means that is your default router thing. Gateway is like a place, a door for you to go out to different network. That's why we call it gateway. Basically, we can call it that or router. Same. Okay? Same. There are multiple constraints of IP addresses. Okay? You cannot use IP addresses in this constraint thing. Basically, you cannot assign your device that these IP addresses technically. If you want to what is it called again? Browse internet with it. Okay, 244.0.0.0 until this is for multicast purpose, and this is for IETF research purpose, and this is for your device to talk to itself, which is a loopback address because devices get lonely sometimes. And 255 until the end is what we call reserved for all devices, a universal broadcast address. As you can see over here, this is your common private IP address, and then it is used for private stuff only, cannot be used for internet traffic. And then you wonder, I think I saw my computer when I do the IP config. It says your IP address over there is 192.168.0.3 or something, right? And then you wonder why can I go to internet if my IP config say my IP address is this? You can go to the internet because your ISP has given you a public IP address. So if you want to check your real IP address when you're browsing online, you can just Google what's my IP. And this one is very important. You cannot use the first address and the last address for each subnet. For example, this one. Okay. So this is 136.186.0.0 if subnet mask of 255.255.0.0. So the last address of this will be 255.255 in the end. This is your broadcast address. And then the first one is now the 136.186.0.0 is your network ID, your network address, your subnet ID. Yeah, the name keep changing, this thing. But you cannot use that ID to assign inside a host. Basically, you cannot assign this IP address to any of your device. Okay, in this exercise, it asks you which of these are valid IP addresses for devices. Okay, 238.1.2.3, 255.255.255.0. So is this valid? Okay, this one is not valid for device because it is a multicast address. You see, 238. Let me go back. Multicast address 238. 238 is it is a constrained IP address, so you cannot use it in a device. And this one 129.254.256.127, it is not a valid IP address because there's nothing such as 256 in IP addresses, IPv4. You can do the rest by yourself and then try it to make sure, and then you can just ask me or ask your friend as well for answers, I suppose. Maybe I should give it inside the canvas, I think. I'll think about that. So this is something that we always try to remind our student again and again. Devices must be in the same subnet to communicate in the same LAN. So the IP address and the subnet mask must be configured at a minimum. So in order to communicate with other subnet, a router must be used. So a default gateway address must be configured in order to communicate outside the local LAN. So remember your IP address setting, you have your IP address, your subnet mask, and your default gateway. So configure these two for LAN and another one if you want to communicate with outside devices, outside of your network. So for this one, it's showing you how to calculate the subnet ID and the subnet broadcast address. A broadcast address is what the subnet used to communicate with all of the devices. Remember just now when I told you the host portion and the network portion? Let me show you previously. Alright, over here, remember? The network portion of the address is where the subnet mask thing is over here is 1 and this one is 0s, okay? So according to that logic just now, this is your network portion and the other side is your host portion. So to find the subnet ID or portion, you need to be 0. Okay, so this is your subnet ID, your network ID, your network address, whatever thing you want to call it. And then to find broadcast ID, the host portion need to be 1. So this is your broadcast ID for this network. Alright? So we are done talking about IP addressing for this week. Let's talk about something a little bit happier in a way or more controversial in a way. Let's talk about jobs. Alright? This is in 2018 data over here by 6.com.au, which is an Australian website for job seeking. As you can see inside this website, there's a lot more IT job compared to other type of job. Okay, why we are talking about this is because, as you can see, all of these jobs over here, this is like the job that pay more than 150,000 Australian dollar per year. Okay, we have a programmer, we have like 1,000 plus job over here, and the business system analyst, the architects, consultant, and so on. This is amount of job. So guess what is this one over here after developer and programmer? It is what they call program and project management kind of job. Okay, so it is quite important in a way. That's why we are teaching this stuff in network admin, which is project management stuff. So why does the project management pay a lot? Because senior IT professional with a lot of experience tend to fill the rank of project manager. They're tired programming liao lah, they become boss lor. So you need to have a lot of soft skills. You need to know how to talk to people. So you need to become a great communicator. You need to know how to manage people, manage skill in documentation, and so on, and understand technology of that project. So if you don't understand what you're doing, it's not going to work. Managing thing, we have project management body of knowledge. Okay, we have 9 areas over here. There might be more, there might be less. Who knows? Okay. This is what we call the project management triple constraint: the scope, cost, and time. Let me see how to draw this. Your scope, cost, and time. These changes, if one of it changes, it affects the other. For example, if you have a big scope, big project, all right, big project cannot be cheap, and big project cannot be done real fast. If you want to do a really fast job, okay, it might cannot be cheap, and it also might cannot be too complicated if you want it to be fast. All right, something like that. So like whatever changes, for example, time taken, or like reduce cost or reduce scope, increase scope, it will change the other part as well. So you need to find the correct balance when you started a new project. The first area of PMBOK, which is called Project Integration Management. This thing involves coordinating other 8 of the PMBOK areas throughout the project lifetime. So you need to remember the first area is the one that integrate, the one that coordinate other areas. The first area especially involves identifying and communicating with the project key stakeholders. So, project area 1, integration and stakeholders. Stakeholders are the people involved in or affected by project activities and include people who may be affected but don't need to be informed, people who will be affected or involved and need to be informed, people who have input in decision-making process, and people who have the authority. For an example, you have a supermarket over here. I have my own Tesco or something. Okay, I wanted to open a Tesco. So the customer that go to my supermarket may be affected, but you don't need to inform them about the project or the progress of the project. Okay, they might be affected. Sometimes price might increase, price might decrease. You don't need to inform them. All right, unless you want to do so. I mean, it's up to you, I guess. Okay, my other staff, the staff of head office, will be affected by the project and need to be kept informed of changes that will affect them. Maybe they get their salary increase or reduce, Next is people who are like your supplier. Let me draw something over here. Yep. Okay, nice drawing, right? The supplier and contractor will be involved in the project and need to be informed of what they are required to supply. Okay, maybe I like more instant noodle this week, or maybe I don't like instant noodle this week in my supermarket. Okay, so if circumstances of the involvement change, they need to be informed of the changes. Okay, so the last one that need to be informed is the one that have ability and authority to make decision relating of the project. Maybe your boss, or maybe some kind of like the one that really involved in the project making thing or something. Let's move on. Okay, so key stakeholders have role in making decision in the project. They tend to be specialized in area feasibility related to the project. Alright, so let's see. What it is trying to say over here is the key stakeholder usually have the knowledge of the project, and then in either one of these. For example, let's try to have a problem. Okay, let's start a problem. So you are like going out, trying to go out with your girlfriend. Let me show you. Very cute girlfriend. I'm gonna draw some flower. So you're running out of time. You woke up late. So your girlfriend already be waiting. Very far away. Oops. Very far away. Like 10 km or something, okay? So let's see how we going to reach there fast. What if we build something like in Star Trek, that something can teleport you to your girlfriend? So in technical view, that is not possible and cannot be done. How about you buy a private jet to fly to your girlfriend in few minutes? Cannot, you're too broke. So what if you drive your car? Okay, drive your car, this is your car, and then you go 200 km per hour. Cannot, it's not legal. Later police catch you, how? How about you say to your girlfriend, cannot today, tomorrow can to go out tomorrow, only later because it's very late already, don't want to go out already. And then your girlfriend get angry because your girlfriend have been waiting for more than 30 minutes over there. So the organization will not accept this kind of solution. How about you think about building something underground tunnel to your girlfriend so you can reach to your girlfriend? Also cannot, because you cannot do it in time. So this kind of thing is the one that you need to consider, and usually the key stakeholder is the one that know what to do for that project. Alright, so maybe this solution, just tell her you're going to be late a bit. Say sorry that you woke up late today because you slept late last night playing League of Legends. Area 2 of PMBOK are called Project Scope Management. The scope is all the work required in producing the project's output. It involves defining the endpoint of the project by outlining the deliverables, right? Outline what you need to deliver to your client. You need to control the changes of the scope to prevent scope creep and to ensure that the change are feasible. Basically, to ensure that any change that your client asks, it'll be okay with you. Alright, what does it mean by this? Okay, this is a really common problem faced by project manager, which is the scope creep. Scope creep occurs when stakeholders start to understand the potential of the project and have brilliant idea on how slightly tailoring the project will enable the project to meet new objective. Okay, for example, you have a car over here. Your client asks you to build a car, and then your client say, that car you can always add wing and the car can fly. If not, the client don't want to accept the project because you didn't define the scope correctly. You have to do that. If not, the client will not pay you. But if you already defined the scope earlier that you will not do this kind of changes, then your client cannot say anything and still pay you the money. That's why scope management is important to ensure that any changes are the one that you can change. Maybe add something like first changes is 50 ringgit or something, and so on. In project management body of knowledge, area 3 is called project time management. The aim of the time management is to get the project finished on time. To do this, you need to do several steps of stuff over here. The point number 1 and the point number 5 is quite self-explanatory, which is to break down the project into component activity, meaning smaller component, and to develop a schedule. But you see the point 3 and the point 4 over there, we have to estimate. That means guessing. Alright? But then if you tell your client that you are guessing the time taken, the time that you need, it does not sound very impressive. So basically, if you're young some more, then why do you think that you guess that you can do it and that kind of time? Usually younger project manager usually guess and estimate this thing wrongly. That is why project manager usually are IT professional who have a lot of experience already. The trick is to increase whatever you estimate by 30%. For example, if you think the work requires 3 hours to do, you make it 4 hours. Alright? Maybe 5 hours, who knows, okay? Just add some thing what we call padding time or buffering time. So IT project have to deal with universal principle technology only works when you don't need it to work. Okay, that's the universal principle of IT stuff. Technology only works when you don't need it to work, which is this thing, right? This famous device that only work if you don't want it to work. Something called a printer. Okay, so please keep in mind the risk associated with buffering your estimation. If you put this time very too long or something, competitors may get the contract if they underquote you in time. So if your competitor thinks that they can do it faster, then your client might choose your competitor instead of you. Alright? The fourth area in PMB, okay, is project cost management. The aim of cost management is to get the project finished within the agreed price. So you need to estimate the cost, determine the budget, and control the cost because it never stays constant, is what they say. Okay? As what it usually is, you can use the 30% markup thing as what I told you previously. It also works with the cost management. But the risk associated with buffering your cost estimation is a lot more because you have competitors that may get the contract if they are cheaper than you. So if you want a repeating business, it is better to overquote and charge under the quote. Okay? There's actually a lot of customers who have been promised by certain company that a project will cost some money and some time to deliver. Okay? But then they find out in the end that the project is very late and then cost almost double. In next week lecture, we're going to learn the rest of the PMBOK, which is Quality Management, Human Resource, Communication, Risk, and Procurement Management. You can try to download the MS project using the Canvas link thing that I post. Also, you can probably get it in Microsoft Azure. As what I show you all last week, that you have certain amount of student credit in your Azure. You probably want to try. By using the MS Project 2016, it helps certain part of the project, which is the integration, scope, time and cost, human resource and communication management. You will learn how to use MS Project in next week lab. Okay, so that's all for lecture this week. Hi, thank you for coming this week lecture. Let's see, to students who still cannot do their lab, don't worry so much about it. Let's hope that the lab remote access will get to you as soon as possible. Don't worry, because the lab one is quite simple. You can watch the video to learn about it for now. Alright, so see you all next time. Chane!